Hi, welcome to this episode of The Daily. My name is Brendan Malone. Well, last week there was a bit of a brief storm that broke in Catholic circles about some comments that the Pope supposedly made about the role of deaconess being reinstituted in the church, females being able to be deaconesses again like they were in the early church again today. And a lot of people ran with this, and I've got another episode coming about this because there was a lot of dishonest reporting of this. Because when you actually read, this is why it's so short-lived, when you actually went and read what the Pope said and you read it in context, you realised that people completely misconstrued and misreported, I think rather dishonestly, what he had actually said. But the point is this, when people were sharing this around, this whole thing about deaconesses, I saw people sharing it around and saying, yay, this is great, at last, a place for women in the church, and sort of making comments like that. And my first reaction when I read those comments was, what? First of all, deaconesses is not an answer to any problem that exists in the church in the West right now. And why do I say that? Because there is no problem with female connection and involvement and commitment in our churches. In fact, females are stepping up to the plate far too often. That's not a bad thing. It's happening because men are not stepping up to the plate when they should be. The problem is not with the lack of female connection and commitment and involvement in local parishes. The problem is the total lack, or not the total lack, but a large and glaring lack of male involvement where it should be happening. One of the things I talk a lot to about men is this idea that if you are a husband and a father and a man of faith, your job is not simply to be the chauffeur who drives your your family to and from church every Sunday. Your call is to actually be invested in evangelism, obviously in the life of your family and your marriage and the faith formation of your children and nurturing and supporting the faith of your spouse, your wife, but also you're supposed to be involved in service of the church as well and evangelistic efforts in the name of the church, no matter how small they might be depending on the time you have to commit. But you are supposed to be connected. You are supposed to be serving, taking the gift of your masculine strength and directing it outwards. But the problem is, I would argue, that we don't need, as some have suggested, we need to discover a new theology of feminism. We don't. Saint Pope John Paul II has already given the church this very deep, wide-ranging and beautifully profound theology on the feminine genius. Go and read his new feminism, his authentic feminism. If you haven't read it, go and read it. It's profound. There are even secular, non-religious feminists who are praising Pope John Paul II for that work. I've read it. They're saying, I never thought I'd say this, but they like what he had to say. What we do need, I would argue, is a re-engagement of men in our church. And the reason that men are not engaging, I would argue, is because we are not speaking to men as men. We are not laying down the challenge, and we are not speaking to men in the terminology, in the ways that they can understand. And what men are looking for ultimately is something that they can give themselves to, that they can sacrifice for, that they can leave a legacy behind themselves by their involvement in. Men typically are looking to invest themselves in projects that actually count for something and that build legacy. They know they can look back on and see that their work has been meaningful. But we're not giving them that opportunity, or certainly not enough. There are isolated examples of that, but in the West, that's what we need to rediscover. So deaconesses is not an answer to the real problem that the church is facing. Instead, we need to start reinvigorating, challenging, and connecting with men. Thanks for watching. I'll see you tomorrow on The Daily.